In this crazy world, it's so hard to unwind. So I'm taking time just for me. Gonna find my peace, let my soul be free. In the quiet moments, that's where I'll find a little room to breathe and leave it all behind. Give me room to breathe, I need some time to heal my heart, to clear my mind. Gonna love myself, yeah, I believe in the power of me. Just give me room to breathe.
Great new day to all my self-care family and friends. Welcome back to another Room to Breathe podcast. I'm your host, Life Coach 614, and I am so happy that you've made space to be here with us today. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I need for everyone to do me a quick favor. If you're feeling the vibes, go ahead and show us some love. Tap the screen, like, comment, but most importantly, I need for you to share this out with someone who could use a little healing energy today. And if this is your first time here, or you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that follow button. Subscribe to our channel so that way you're always tapped in when a new episode drops. I also want to personally invite you to check out our digital home at the selfcareclub.org, where you will find everything you need from affirmative apparel to motivational merch, as well as a ton of free resources to help nourish your growth and remind you that you are supported every step of the way. Just know that you don't have to do this alone. We are healing in community, growing one breath, one moment, one day at a time. So today, I encourage you to give yourself permission to pause, to make time for peace, make time for yourself to grow. And remember, if anything in today's episode hits home, be sure to drop some green hearts in the chat. That is our community's way of saying, I am healing, I am growing, and I am showing up for me. Now, let's get ready to breathe, reflect, and grow together. Now, family, today we are talking about something that keeps a lot of people stuck. And I mean really stuck. Not because they're lazy, not because they don't care, not because they lack talent or purpose, but because somewhere along the way, many of us were taught directly or indirectly that we have to wait until everything is perfect before we begin, right? We tell ourselves things like, I'll start when I have more time. I'll start when I have more money. Welcome in, unique creation. We say, I'll start when I feel more confident, or I'll start when life settles down, right? When things calm down, that's when I'll begin. And before we realize it, months have passed. Sometimes years pass. Dreams sit on the shelf. Ideas stay trapped in notebooks. Healing conversations never happen. Boundaries never get spoken. Not because we didn't want better, but because we were waiting for the perfect moment, right? The moment that felt convenient, more comfortable, more certain. But here's the truth that most people don't say out loud. Welcome in, Don, Rich Risings. Perfect conditions rarely exist. See, life doesn't pause so we can get ourselves together. Responsibilities keep coming. Challenges keep showing up. And if we keep waiting for life to be completely calm before we move, we might end up waiting forever. And that's why today's message matters so much, because sometimes the breakthrough that you're praying for doesn't come from waiting. It comes from starting anyway. Fearless, welcome in, beautiful. Right? Starting when things still look a little messy. Starting when you're still trying to figure it out. Starting when you don't even have all the answers yet. And see, that's where this reminder comes in today. Simple but powerful. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. Again, start where you are. Use what you have. And do what you can. Not where you wish you were. Not where someone else is. Where you are. Use the knowledge that you have right now. Use the resources that you have right now. Use the strength you've built from every single thing that you've already survived. And then take the step that's possible today. Because progress doesn't begin when everything is perfect. Progress begins the moment that you decide where you are is a good enough place to start. Trisha, welcome in. And so there's this myth about perfect timing, right? So we'll just start there, right? Something that I know that a lot of people quietly believe in, even if you don't admit it to yourself out loud, right? And that's that myth of perfect timing. And I know y'all know what I'm talking about, right? The moment where we imagine where everything finally lines up, right? Like life is calm, the bills are paid, the confidence is high. You know what I mean? We feel fully prepared. And somehow, magically, all the fear that we've experienced over the years disappears. We tell ourselves, okay, that's when I'll start, right? That's when I'll launch the business. That's when I'll write the book. That's when I'll go back to school. That's when I'll leave this situation that's draining me. That's when I'll start choosing myself. But let me share something with you that many people learn the hard way. Perfect timing rarely shows up the way we imagine it. Life doesn't pause and clear a smooth path for us to walk on. Most of the time, life keeps moving. Responsibilities keep piling up. And the moment, we were waiting for never arrives the way that we expected it to. And because we're waiting for the ideal moment, we delay our own growth. We delay the healing conversations. We delay the creative ideas. We delay stepping into, a version of ourselves that we kept saying we want to become because we're waiting for the perfect moment. But the truth is, most meaningful things in life begin in imperfect moments. People start businesses while they're still working full-time jobs. People begin healing journeys while they're still carrying wounds. People step into purpose while they're still figuring things out. They didn't wait until everything felt comfortable. They moved despite the discomfort. Welcome in, Miss Cynthia. Right? And if we're being honest, sometimes waiting for the right time is actually just fear dressed up in responsible language. It sounds mature, right? It sounds practical. But underneath that logic is a quiet voice saying, what if I fail? What if I'm not ready? What if people judge me? What if I start and it doesn't work out? So we sabotage ourselves and now we wait. Judith, welcome in, right? We sit and we wait. But here's something powerful to consider. Confidence doesn't come before action. You don't become ready first and then begin. Many times you begin and the readiness grows along the way. I mean, think about learning to ride a bike. Nobody waits until they're perfectly balanced before they get on, right? You get on that bike, you wobble a little bit, you fall, you get back up, you try again, and little by little that balance comes. So we have to understand that life works the same way. That clarity that you are searching for often reveals itself after you start moving. And sometimes the very act of taking one small step breaks the illusion that everything had to be perfect in the first place. So if you've been sitting on something, right? Be it a dream, an idea, a decision, because you're waiting for the right moment, I just want to offer you this truth very gently. The right moment may not be the one where everything feels easy. The right moment may simply be the one where you decide you're done staying stuck. this podcast might be your right moment. So the first step is simply starting where you are. Okay? And I know that, this sounds simple, but can be surprisingly hard for many of us, right? That whole starting where you are. And when I say that, again, not where you wish you were, not where you think you could be or should be now, not where someone else seems to be in their journey, but right here in your current reality. Because one of the biggest reasons that people stay stuck is that they spend so much time wishing they were further ahead, right? So much so that they never honor the power of where they are today. Maybe you wish you had more education. Maybe you wish you had more support. Maybe you wish you had started 5 years ago. Maybe you look at life and think, I should be further along now. But here's the truth that we have to learn to make peace with. You can't start from where you wish you were. You can only start from where you actually are. And there is nothing shameful about that. See, starting where you are means that you're acknowledging your current reality without letting it become your permanent identity, right? It means saying, okay, this is my starting point. Maybe your starting point includes healing from trauma. Yes, queen. Maybe your starting point includes learning boundaries after years of people pleasing. Maybe your starting point, includes grief, uncertainty, starting over. But I need you to listen to me carefully. Starting over is not a failure. Starting over is proof that you're still choosing you. And sometimes the most powerful journeys begin in places that feel uncomfortable or uncertain, right? Because when you start where you are, you also start developing something incredibly valuable, and that is self-trust. You begin proving to yourself that you don't have to be, at a certain point, that you don't have to have everything figured out in order to move forward. You learn that growth doesn't happen in giant leaps most of the time. You understand or begin to understand that it happens through small, consistent decisions. And, it's usually one conversation, one journal entry, one boundary, right? Crystalline, welcome in. It takes one act of courage, one step towards something that once felt impossible. And the beautiful thing about starting where you are is that it removes the pressure to perform. Yeah, I'm not even worried about it, Crystalline. We don't care. All right, we don't care. We're here to deliver our message, sis. Don't worry about it. But yeah, so it removes this need or pressure to perform, right? Because you don't have to pretend that you're further along than you are. You don't have to rush your healing. You don't have to compare your journey to someone else's timeline. You just simply begin. And, something powerful happens when you do that. Momentum starts to build, right? Clarity starts to grow. Confidence starts to rise. And it's not because everything suddenly, became perfect. It's because you finally gave yourself permission to start anyway. So if today you're finding yourself thinking, I wish I would have started sooner, let me just gently remind you that you can start today. The best time to start may have been years ago, but the second best time to start is right now. Yes, Miss Cynthia. And when I say start right now, I mean right where you are, with everything that you've already learned, with every lesson that life has already given you, because your starting point doesn't disqualify you. In many ways, it's actually the very thing that makes your journey so powerful. So not only do you have to start where you are, but you also have to use what you have, right? Because this is the second part of today's reminder. Use what you have. Because I think that one of the most common ways that we talk ourselves out of beginning something is by convincing ourselves we don't have enough. And when I say not enough, welcome in, butterfly, I'm talking about not enough money, not enough knowledge, not enough support, not enough connections, not enough resources. And so we pause the dream, right? We delay the idea. We keep telling ourselves that we'll start after we get more. But if we really sit with that mindset for a moment, it becomes a trap. Because there will always be something else we think we need first. Another certification, another piece of equipment, another plan, another layer of preparation. And before we realize it, we've spent more time preparing to start something than actually starting it. Most people who eventually build something meaningful didn't begin with everything that they needed. I will use myself as an example. When I wanted to start a podcast, I was like, oh, I need to have this. I have to have a mic. I have to have this. And then one day I just woke up like, no, I don't. I got a phone. My phone has a microphone. When I talk, people hear me. The podcast is for people to hear me. So let me push the button, right? Gift and restored. Let me push the button. Let me see, right? I'm on your street, girl. I'm glad to be in the neighborhood, Shamika. How you doing, girl? And so when I first started going, and you guys, you can go back on my YouTube and scroll back to some of those older podcasts. Okay, we did not have the things that we have now. We did not have the fancy microphones. We did not have the sound effects. We didn't have all the things. Honey, this layout that y'all see on YouTube, baby, we ain't had none of this. We was sitting here, it was a blank screen. It was just me and y'all. Right? And that was about 3 years ago, Crystalline. I think it's been about 3-4 years. I've been unintentionally podcasting since about 2020. So, calling it a podcast probably about 3 to 4 years ago. But, again, I just decided one day, you know what? I just need to push the button and I'll build as I go because people like progress, right? So we started from the bottom. Now we here. Exactly. I've come a long way. So again, people rarely build with, everything that they need in the beginning. They learn as they go, right? They begin with what they had in the moment. I had a phone and I had internet. Okay. I used to play music in the sound bar, didn't have a mic, had to work with the lighting. Boom. Finally got a ring light. Okay, cool. We got the ring light now. Oh, we got a backdrop. Cool. We had the backdrop. So again, you grow. You begin with what you have in the moment. And like I said, many people who are building things, when we think about, let's say, content creators, podcasters, live streamers, right? Because that's the world that we seem to live in now. Most of those people, they just use the phone that they already own. They use the skills that they already developed, right? They use the knowledge that they gained already through their own lived experiences. Me, with podcasting, I was just up here talking, telling my story, speaking my truth, answering questions. Went and got my certification. I literally became a life coach on TikTok. Right? I started going and getting my certifications. I started learning. Conversation started shifting. Organization came. Consistency was building because I kept showing up every day. Didn't like this, get feedback from my supporters. Oh, they like this. Okay, cool. Let's try this. I used the relationships that I already had in my circle to help me build, to help me expand my circle. So it was a small group of us who started out, and then we wanted to talk off the app. So I created a community so we can converse offline. Now we're 60 strong in our community. Some of them have been with me from the very beginning. So again, don't wait for the perfect conditions. Work with what's already in your hands. And sometimes we underestimate just how much we already have. You may not see it as a resource, but I need for you to understand that your story is a resource. Your resilience is a resource. Your lessons learned the hard way are a resource. Your perspective is a resource. Your voice is a resource. The very things that you survived may be the exact wisdom that somebody else needs to hear. But when we're constantly looking at what we lack, we overlook at all that we already carry. And sometimes the tools that you need to start, your next chapter are already sitting quietly in your life. A notebook, an idea, a supportive friend, a healing community, a skill that you've been developing for years without even realizing its value. You don't need to have every tool before you begin. Many tools appear along the journey. Again, thinking back in my journey, my community made this podcast what it is today. If it wasn't for my supporters from the live stream, going to the Amazon wish list, first and foremost, telling me to create an Amazon wish list, right? It took one supporter to say, hey, coach, you need to make a wish list of all the things that you could use to grow the podcast. And as we would go, they would be like, oh, this is really good, but we need more lighting, coach. Just add this to your wish list. And I'm like, okay, so I make the wish list and we put the wish list out there. And then people began sending things off the wish list for the podcast. The fountains, the ring light, the mic, all the things. You know what I mean? And I'm like, wow, like people are just sending things, but it helped me to make the show better. Right? So because I just started, from what I had, opportunities began showing up the more I kept moving. Mentors started appearing. The moment I would start asking questions on how to do something, boom, I had a whole bunch of podcasters pulling up. I had a whole bunch of coaches and clinicians and therapists pull up and pour into me. In this season that I'm in right now, I started thinking about writing, and you guys know I write music. But I was like, do I really want to write a book? Because I've been very anti-write a book for a while. Several supporters were like, coach, when you going to write a book? And I'm like, y'all, I'm not going to write a book. I'm not ready. I did the same thing. I'm not ready. I don't necessarily know what I'm going to talk about yet. Man, when I say last year, God sent so many authors, writers, publishers to me. And I'm like, what you trying to say, God? Like, I'm supposed to write this book? He like, duh, that's what I've been saying. That's what Kale and Brooks been telling you, is to write the book. Right? And so, again, those mentors started appearing the moment I started asking questions. Resources grow when you start creating value. Doors open once you've already taken just a few steps down the path. But none of that happens when you stay stuck waiting for, your full toolkit to begin with you. Right? Thank you. And Dawn, I'm happy to say I'm actually already in the process of the book, hoping to release really soon. Because again, I had to acknowledge that nothing happens if nothing happens. Nothing changes if nothing changes. Miss Cynthia, have an amazing day, beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. Elevated Awakenings, Lady Blue, welcome in. So you guys, sometimes growth looks like just saying, I may not have everything, but I have enough to take the next step, right? Because that right there, that is powerful. Because when you begin using what you already have, something shifts internally. You move from a mindset of lack and you move into a mindset of resourcefulness, right? Exactly, Brooks. Like, it's progress. Every little step is progress. And if you think about it, you guys, that's where our creativity starts to flourish, right? That's where solutions start to appear. That's where progress begins taking shape. So if you've been telling yourself that you can't start because you don't have enough, let me just offer you a gentle perspective. Look again. Miss Bren, look again. Look closely at your life, your experiences, your strength, your voice. You might discover that the very things that you've been overlooking are the exact tools that can carry you forward. Yes, Brooks, look again. Because you don't need everything. You just need enough to begin. So we started where we are, right? Start where you are. Use what you have. And next, I need for you to do what you can. And this part is so important because a lot of people hear this message, and hear messages about growth and immediately feel pressure, right? Pressure to do more, pressure to move faster, pressure to suddenly transform your whole life overnight. Thank you so much for the heart puffs. That's not what real growth looks like. Okay? Real growth, the kind that lasts, often happens in small intentional steps. Doing what you can means honoring your current capacity. Some days you may have energy to take big steps. Other days, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to simply rest, reflect, and reset. And that still counts. Because progress isn't always about doing more. Sometimes progress is about doing what's sustainable so you don't burn yourself out trying to prove something to someone. And let's be real for a moment. Many of us were raised with the idea that we must always be pushing harder. Thank you, guys. Right? We were raised to understand that, or to believe or think that rest meant falling behind. That slowing down means that you're not serious about your goals. But healing teaches us something different. Healing teaches us that our pace matters, right? Your nervous system matters. Your emotional capacity matters. You're allowed to grow at a pace that honors your well-being. Doing what you can might look like making one phone call that you've been avoiding. It might look like sending the email. It might look like writing one paragraph of the book that you keep talking about. It might look like scheduling that therapy appointment. It might even look like having a difficult conversation where you finally express that boundary. And sometimes doing what you can means choosing not to engage in something that drains your peace. Not answering the phone. Not responding to the text message. Sometimes the most powerful, action is simply saying, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not entertaining that anymore. Because when you approach growth this way, you stop measuring your worth by how much you can accomplish in a single day. Instead, you start recognizing the power of consistency. And I know we say that a lot, right? Consistency is key. Little by little, step by step, decision by decision. And the truth is, small actions compound over time. The one journal entry becomes a habit of reflection. The one boundary, right? Oh, that becomes a new standard of how you, people treat you. The one step forward, towards your purpose becomes the beginning of an entirely new chapter. But none of that happens if we convince ourselves that if we can't do everything, we shouldn't do anything. doing what you can is about releasing the all or nothing mentality. It's about saying, I don't have to fix my entire life today, but I can move 1 inch in the right direction. Knowing that those inches add up. So today I want you to ask yourself something simple but so powerful. What is one thing I can do from where I am today? Not 10 things, not the perfect plan, not, when I have it all figured out. What is one thing that I can do from where I am today? Just one step. Papa Smurf, welcome in, bro. He said, let him cook. Sometimes the most transformative thing you can do for your life is simply refuse to stay still. And we've got to be real about, the dangers that come with comparison. I know that we live in a society where we see everybody's highlight reels, but I need for you guys to understand that comparison is truly the thief of joy. And it's another reason why many people delay starting. You look around and you see somebody else who seems further ahead, and suddenly your beginning feels so small. You see someone else with 1,000 followers. You see someone who looks confident on camera. Someone whose business seems established. Someone whose healing journey looks polished and peaceful. And before you know it, that quiet voice starts whispering, why even try? They're already doing it better. I'm too late. I missed it. But comparison is one of the fastest ways to disconnect from your own path. We were playing Two Truths and a Lie in one of the groups that I'm in. And, one of the truth/lie that I said was, I absolutely love public speaking and I never get nervous when I go live. And that is an absolute lie. That was my lie, you guys, because I have a fear of public speaking. I am absolutely terrified. I will start stuttering and fumbling over my words. I am absolutely terrified of public speaking. And every single time before I push the button with you guys, I am nervous. Every time. Been doing this since 2020. And every single time I am still nervous. So when I say that, people look at me and they'll be like, oh, she does this, she's doing that. No, y'all, I am nervous every single interview, every single podcast recording, every single live stream. I'm nervous, but I feel the fear and I do it anyway. Right? I used to compare myself to other live hosts, other podcasters, other live streamers, content creators. But I learned that when you compare, your beginning to somebody else's middle or even their highlight reel, you begin to lose sight of, the fact that every single journey has a starting point. There were so many times that God had to remind me, I didn't ask you to compare yourself to somebody else. God said, I gave you a mission. I told you what to do. I told you to go reach the people. So again, I need for you guys to begin to understand that what you're seeing now is the visible part of my story. You're not seeing the years that I spent learning. You're not seeing the mistakes that I made. You're not seeing the moments that, I almost quit. And trust me, there were plenty of those moments. Oftentimes, you don't see the nights that, I question myself, or the times that I had to rebuild something because something else didn't work. I'll tell y'all that website, funny story. When I first created the website, selfcareclub.org, right? Y'all, I did the website. I learned how to do all the coding. I did all of the things behind the scenes myself. And that first website was so basic, y'all. Okay, I think I sold I had 7 different products to sell, but it was a start. Okay. And so I created the whole website, had the website up there. Welcome in, Tammy. And y'all, I went in to go do something else and I accidentally deleted the whole thing. It had taken me 3 or 4 days of super focused, building this website. And I pressed one button and erased it all and had no idea how to get it back because I had just learned how to get it there. But I didn't quit. I got really pissed. I said several choice words. Then I turned the music on and I rebuilt it again. Because if I did it before, I knew that I could do it again. And this time I was able to fix some other things that I didn't like, but I was about to settle for. So again, there were so many times in my journey where I thought, oh my gosh, I'm just going to quit. Maybe this is a sign. If I would have taken that as a sign, I would not have that website that I still manage completely on my own, that I have still built from the bottom, that every single time I do an upgrade, I still learn how to code. I didn't tell myself that I was too old to do this. I didn't tell myself that there was no purpose for this. I knew this is what I needed to do. And so if I wasn't careful, that same social media that I used as a resource could have destroyed what I was attempting to build if I would have continued to compare myself to other people. Social media, success stories, and public platforms rarely show a person's full journey. It just simply shows the results, not the process. And so when we compare ourselves to somebody else's results, we start believing that our progress isn't good enough. But I need for you to understand that your path was never meant to look like anyone else's. Your voice is different. Your perspective is different. Your life experiences have shaped you in ways that no one else can replicate. And that uniqueness is not a weakness. It is your value. The world doesn't need another copy of someone else who already exists. It needs people who are willing to show up as themselves authentically. And sometimes the moment that you stop comparing your journey to other people's is exactly the moment you reclaim your momentum. Because instead of asking, am I as far along as they are? You begin to ask much healthier questions. Questions like, am I moving forward from where I was yesterday? Because that's the comparison that actually matters. Growth isn't about competing with other people. Growth is about honoring your own evolution. So if comparison has been, making your beginning feel small, I just want to remind you something important. Every meaningful journey begins quietly. And your first step doesn't need to impress anyone. It just needs to be real. So take the first step. And you know what? Let's talk about something that often shows up right at the moment when you're about to start something new. Right? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? The one thing that always shows up when you're about to start something. Throw out some words for me, y'all. Can anybody guess? Come on now. All right. Look, Brooke said out the gate, God. Yes. Blue, that too. Blue said a toddler. Every time I get ready to start something, I got a toddler. Yeah, girl, them too. But God, right? But no, the correct answer, we're going to give it to Brooks, was faith, right? Because sometimes the hardest part of beginning isn't the actual work itself, it's the uncertainty that comes with it. When you're stepping into something new, you don't always know exactly how it's going to unfold. You don't know who's going to support you. You don't know what challenges may come. You don't know how long it's going to take. And that uncertainty can make your mind start, asking all type of questions. What if this doesn't work? What if I'm not ready? What if I fail? But faith asks a different question. Faith asks you, what if it does work? What if this step leads me somewhere I never imagined? What if, the growth I'm praying for is waiting on the other side of this decision? See, faith doesn't mean that you suddenly have all the answers. Faith means that you're willing to move even when you don't have all the answers yet. It's trusting that path will reveal itself as you walk. You may not see the entire staircase, but you can see the next step. And sometimes that's all you need, because many of the most meaningful things in life require stepping into spaces where clarity comes after movement, not before it. I mean, think about how many things in life we learn by doing. You don't become confident speaking before you start speaking. You don't become confident setting boundaries until you start setting them. You don't become confident pursuing purpose before you take the first step towards walking in your purpose. Confidence grows through experience, and experience begins with action. That's why so many people discover something surprising when they finally, begin something that they've been putting off. The fear that they felt before starting was often bigger than the reality of actually taking the first step. Not because the journey became easy, right? It's because movement breaks down the illusion that you're incapable. When you start moving through what's impossible, you start to notice how possible it actually is. And see, faith also reminds us that growth isn't something that we have to control every step of the way. Sometimes our role is to simply be obedient to the nudge that we're feeling in our spirit, that quiet voice that says, try, speak, create, share, leave, heal. Those nudges don't always come with detailed instructions. Sometimes they simply come with a feeling that something inside of you is ready to expand. Exactly, Don. You won't know unless you try. And honoring that feeling takes courage, because when you take the first step, you're not just changing your circumstances, you're changing the way you see yourself. You start proving to yourself that you are capable of moving forward. Thank you so much, Unique Creation. You're proving to yourself that you can navigate uncertainty, that you can grow beyond the limitations you once believed about yourself. And each step strengthens that belief. So if you've been feeling that quiet nudge, to start something, to change something, to release something, consider the possibility that the next step doesn't require full clarity. It may simply require faith that you'll figure it out as you go. Because sometimes the door that you're praying for opens the moment that you're willing to walk towards it. And that first step is, it's not just movement. It's the beginning of trusting yourself again. I also want to talk about something that I think quietly holds a lot of people back. And that is the fear of not doing it perfectly. I think that for many of us, perfectionism has been disguised as discipline or high standards or wanting to do things the right way. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to do something well, but perfectionism can also become a form of self-protection, because if everything has to be perfect before we begin, then we never have to risk being seen while we're still learning. We never have to risk criticism, right? We never have to risk making mistakes in public. So instead, we constantly stay in preparation mode. We tweak the idea. We keep revising the plan. We keep saying it's not ready yet. But here's something that might free some of you listening today. Nothing meaningful begins perfectly. Every author starts with messy first drafts. Every speaker once struggled to find their voice. Every entrepreneur once made decisions that they had to learn from. Every healer once had to heal themselves through trial and error. Growth is not a straight line from, beginner to mastery. It's a journey filled with adjustments and lessons and moments where you realize, okay, that didn't work out the way that I thought it would. And understanding that that's not failure, that's learning in real time. And see, the problem with perfectionism is that it convinces us that our early steps have to look like the finished product. But beginnings are supposed to be imperfect. They're supposed to be learning seasons. They're supposed to stretch you. And when we release the pressure to be flawless, something beautiful happens. We become more willing to show up, more willing to experiment, more willing to grow in real time. And that is exactly where authenticity lives. Because people don't connect with perfection, right? They connect with realness. They connect with honesty. They connect to the courage that it takes for someone to say, I'm still learning, but I'm committed to growing. Sometimes the most impactful voices in the world aren't the ones who waited until, they were perfect. They're the ones who were brave enough to begin while they were still becoming. So if perfectionism has been whispering in your ear, telling you that you're not ready yet, let me remind you, you don't have to be perfect to be purposeful. You don't have to be flawless to make an impact. And you don't have to have it all figured out before you start. Your growth doesn't need to be polished. It just needs to be honest. Because the moment that you release that need for perfection, you give yourself permission to fully show up in your journey. Now, before we close out today's conversation, I want to just slow down for just a moment and invite you into a little reflection. Because I think, messages like this aren't just meant to sound good while we're listening to them. They are meant to make you pause and check in with yourself. So we're going to go into this with a breath. Inhale slowly through your nose. Exhale gently from your mouth. Again, breathe in. And out. Now, I want you to ask yourself, where in my life have I been waiting? Where in my life have I been waiting? Waiting to start something you've been thinking about for months, maybe years. Waiting to have a conversation that needs to happen. Waiting to pursue a dream that keeps showing up in your heart. waiting to leave something or someone that you already know no longer aligns with your peace, waiting to begin healing in a deeper way. See, many of us carry ideas, visions, and decisions inside of us that we have quietly postponed. Not because we don't want change, but because starting can feel uncomfortable. It can feel vulnerable and uncertain. Sometimes the longer we wait, the heavier those unstarted things become. They sit in the back of our minds. They show up in our quiet moments. They whisper to us, when life slows down enough for us to hear ourselves think. And if we're honest, many of us can point to at least one area in our life that we've been saying someday, one day, I'll get to it. But today I just want to offer a shift in perspective. What if someday or one day begins today? Not in some dramatic, overwhelming way. Not by trying to fix everything all at once, but just choosing today to take one small step. Maybe that step looks like writing down the idea that you've been carrying. Maybe it looks like researching something that you've been curious about. Maybe it looks like reaching out for support. Maybe it looks like choosing rest so you can finally regain the energy that you've been running without. Whatever that step is, it doesn't have to be big to be meaningful, because every journey begins the same way, with a decision. A quiet moment where you say to yourself, I'm ready to move forward. And when that moment comes, remember the messages that we talked about today. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to feel completely fearless. You don't have to wait until life is perfectly aligned. You simply start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And step by step, breath by breath, you'll begin creating a life, the life that you once thought was waiting somewhere so far away. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. Now, as we start to wrap up today's conversation, I just want to bring us back again to the heart of this message. I'm going to stress this. In fact, let me pin this up for you guys. If you don't write anything else down today, I want you to just take note of this. Start where you are. Use what you have and do what you can. Not, where you wish you were, not where somebody else is, but right where you are at this moment. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. With your current experiences, your current wisdom, and yes, your current struggles too. Because the truth is, your starting point is not something to be ashamed of. It is simply the place where your next chapter begins. And along the way, you may not feel fully prepared. You may not always feel confident. You may not always know exactly, how things are going to unfold. But that does not mean that you're not ready to move forward. Sometimes readiness isn't about having all the answers. It is just simply deciding that I refuse to stay stuck any longer. So instead of waiting for life to feel perfectly aligned, start where you are. Right here with what's in front of you. Use the tools that you already have. Your voice, your experiences, your resilience, your willingness to grow. And then do what you can today. Not everything, just something. Because progress isn't built in giant leaps. It's built in small decisions made consistently over time. And one day you're going to look back and you're going to realize that every step you almost talked yourself out of taking was the step that changed everything. So if something in this conversation, spoke to your spirit today, please drop some green hearts in the chat. That's our community's way of saying I am healing, I am growing, and I am showing up for me. And for those of you who are looking, for a space where you don't have to walk this journey alone, I want to personally invite you to join our Room2Breathe project community powered by school. You can access the community by going to our website at selfcareclub.org or by clicking the link that's located in my bio. That's where you're going to find, access to a lot of free resources, a supportive healing community, and various tools to help you keep choosing yourself one step at a time. I want you guys to remember that you don't have to do everything today. You just have to begin. Take a breath, trust the steps in front of you, and just keep moving forward. Now, as always, I want to leave you all with a little extra love and light. I encourage you to keep breathing through the highs, the lows, and every moment in between. I want you to keep choosing peace, even if it feels out of reach. And know that here at the Self-Care Club, you will always be seen, always valued, and always supported. So don't be afraid to take up space, speak your truth, and make a little room for you to breathe. I love each and every one of you to life. And I am praying that your day is not just amazing, but aligned, intentional, and yes, on purpose, filled with purpose. This has been another Room2Breathe podcast, and I look forward to connecting with you all again soon. Remember, tomorrow we will not be on TikTok. We will be hanging out on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed to our channel already, please head over, search for Room2Breathe Project on YouTube, and subscribe today. We will be on YouTube tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to begin a conversation that you guys do not want to miss. Okay, so join me on YouTube tomorrow at the Room2Breathe Project for another one of our Feature Friday episodes. And again, you guys have an amazing weekend. Enjoy your day. And just remember, today is the day. This is your start. This is your invitation to begin. Thank you.